Welcome to Mastering the Guest Experience. I'm here with Christine Henderson, a local realtor. And I'm super excited to be chatting with you today because you have been hosting for a little while now. You've achieved that super host status, which I think everybody wants to achieve. So I would love to just kind of get to know a little bit about your hosting journey, and we'll talk a little bit about your property. And yeah, like I'm super excited to get to know a little bit about the experience that you offer at your Airbnb.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So could you share a bit about yourself and how you got started as an Airbnb host?
So I was kind of doing longer term rentals. And then there was a unit that had opened up that was kind of good for doing the short term rentals. It's kind of on a main route and it just seemed like a good idea. And it seemed really fun to try too. Because over the last few years, like I think probably once COVID kind of shut everything down,
Yeah.
I started doing more like localized traveling. So I would go and like, book a cottage or do stuff like that, just kind of that excuse to get away from home, I guess, a little
Yeah.
bit. And then once I started experiencing it, I was like, wow, like this is great. Like I can't imagine, what life would be like being able to host because it's a whole different ball game. Like people are usually excited when they're traveling, like it's a whole different vibe. So when the unit became available, then I was like, I don't know, I kind of want to try it. It seems like it might be good. And then it's been great, actually. It's just, it's so nice. People are excited, they're traveling, they're doing stuff, and it's a really nice atmosphere. I pay a lot of attention to like how do the different things that I'm doing in my life make me feel. And I
Mhm.
always kind of gravitate towards things where it's like, there's a pretty good vibe overall. So
Yeah. And
that's
I
kind
think
of,
going with your experiences and knowing like when you have such a great experience, these little elements that you're like, oh, I need to incorporate this in what I'm doing.
yeah,
Because that's kind of where this whole thing came from for me, is like, I want every guest to have an amazing experience, and I want every
yeah,
host to offer an amazing experience.
yeah.
um,
Well,
so,
and then you experience stuff you like, but you also experience stuff you don't like, and
and
you're
you
like,
know
oh, I don't
what
want to
not
do
to
that.
do. Yeah, you get taught what not to do and what to stay away
Yeah.
from. So how long have you been hosting now?
2.5 years.
Okay, awesome. And so what are the key characteristics of your Airbnb property? What is it called again? So we know it's Dragonfly something.
Dragonfly Wilderness Inn.
Right.
Um, so the one ended up being kind of like a blend of short term, long term. So we did end up getting travel nurses. So
Okay.
that's been nice as far as experiences goes. And then there's a cabin as well. The cabin is it's the fun one because it's glamping.
Yes.
My idea, like, I hate camping. I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't like it. But I was like, what would make it enjoyable? Because like I like nature, I
Yeah.
just don't like to be that close to nature. So,
Yeah.
so I'm like, what would make nature fun for people?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, so that's kind of where the cabin came from. So there's the cabin and then the outdoor kitchen, and then like a shower house. There's a blue loo. They've been phenomenal, like so good. They come and clean it every week. Like it's always super fresh. So, because that's
Nice.
all stuff that I really pay attention to. I'm like, I don't want some gross outhouse. Like that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
ideal.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so like obviously as a host yourself, do you monitor like the different Airbnbs in and around the area to see how you are measuring up like against your competition essentially?
No, I don't really pay attention to what other people are doing
Yeah.
generally.
You just know you're
Anything
doing
as
a
far
good
as
job. So.
sorry.
I said you just know that you're doing a good job, so you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna show up the way that I show up no matter what anybody else is doing. So, I don't spend a ton of time on, I couldn't probably even tell you any other Airbnbs in the area just because I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. I'd probably
It's
be the same way.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, like, as far as, market research goes and stuff like that, like, I find Airbnb does generally tell you, like, oh, similar properties are kind of like in this price range and stuff. So they kind of take the legwork out of it. I mean, that would be, to me, the only practical reason to know what else is going on around me is like, where's my pricing at? Like, is it good? Whatever. So
right. Yeah, and I
because
guess,
Airbnb offers that, I'm like, well, I don't have to look around.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you consider a differentiator of your property? And I know obviously if you don't know what the other properties are offering, but what do you believe makes your property stand out in regards to like what you offer or the experience that you're offering?
I think it's just kind of a unique experience in general, especially for the cabin. Like, people like the idea of camping, and they also like the idea of doing that in a king size bed,
Yeah,
So,
why not?
um, and then other than that, I mean, I find that a lot of my reviews kind of come down to like how I communicate and stuff like that. So, I'm a big fan of like, if you have any question at all, like just reach out to me because, you can sit there and struggle with something on the site for like an hour, or you could just message me and I'll get back to you in like 5 seconds and then you can get on with your day.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Get back to enjoying your stay.
yeah, exactly. Like, and I find that's the thing with guests too. Like, some guests like to communicate a lot, other ones don't. So,
Mhm.
it's
So
just
you
kind
kind
of a
of
matter
have
of
to
like,
feel them out.
yeah, you just kind of read the room and go with whatever they're doing. If they're asking a bunch of questions, be polite about it, answer the questions.
Yep.
And like, I had one, they were so cute. Like, they had a ton of questions. They were there for a birthday and there was like a lot of questions, but I was like, that's okay. And they were like, I'm sorry. I'm like, well, don't apologize. Like,
Yeah.
this is part of you having a great stay. So just keep asking. And
Yeah.
then at the end of it, they wrote like the biggest paragraph of a review. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And like, they were so happy about it.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, it's not an inconvenience. Like,
You
I find
signed up
some
for
people,
this.
yeah, like some people are like, oh man, my guest messaged me so many times. I'm like, my guest messaged me so many times. Like, it was great.
Yeah. And the thing is like I know personally from previous stays when it's like automated and not
Mhm.
personalized and or it's like AI and you're talking to a bot, there is nothing
Yeah.
more annoying than knowing
Hmm.
like there's no point in even asking this question because I'm talking to a robot. Like,
Yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? So the personalization and that, that in itself makes it memorable because they know they're talking to you and
Yeah.
you're a real person and you're able to, try and put out the fire if there's something that needs to be addressed or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, what unique touches do you add to make your guests stay memorable? Do you do anything kind of out of the ordinary or go a little bit above and beyond? What would you say is um, a part of your experience that you offer?
I've been kind of building that and growing that. So at first it was like, just leave some treats out there for them. Like, I find people really love those like little Halloween candies.
Yes, yeah.
I see like the little packages of candy or like the little chocolate bars, stuff like that, like a couple of bottles of water to get them started. And then lately I was like, you can write in sand. So when there's like any kind of an occasion or anything like that, whether it's like a birthday or an anniversary, I'll write like, happy birthday in the sand by the bonfire pit.
Oh,
And
amazing.
then I started doing a little bit more like as far as decorating goes. So I have like birthday banners and stuff like that. So it's kind of like set up and kind of inviting. So when people are there for occasions, there's that. And then I also grow like flowers and stuff. So I started taking flowers from the property and then I would do like a little like bouquet of them and leave that there and
Nice.
just
There's
kind of
nothing.
little
I love
things.
that stuff. And that's the thing. People don't realize, like hosts don't realize it can be very, very simple. it may
Yeah.
not be easy, but it's simple. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
cost a lot. It doesn't need to cost a lot of money, maybe a little bit of time or thought
Yeah.
involved, but it doesn't have to be like crazy difficult.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I know that. So we had a call done, and then we had some technical difficulties. So this is like round two for us. And when you were
Yeah.
talking about kind of like a do's and don'ts, and as a
Mhm.
new host, you experience something that you're like, every host needs to know this because
Oh,
I
yes.
don't want you to have to deal with canceling a guest reservation and having to, work your way up the ladder after something like that. So can you
Yes.
explain how that was a lesson that you had to learn?
Yes. So we had a guest. It was our first guest ever. He booked for like a significant amount of time. And then I had instant book on because Airbnb is like, you should have instant book on. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, you run the show, so you should probably give good advice. So
Yeah.
I did that. And then I had somebody instant book the night that he was supposed to be leaving. But then he was like, oh, can I extend by another night? And I was like, crap. So I'm like, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to offer that. But then somebody had instant booked like after I had the conversation with him.
No.
So I was like, oh gosh. So I'm like, okay, hey, like, this is the situation. I'm like, would you be okay, like, with our current guest extending? Like, I know it's probably a bit of an inconvenience for you, but like, and they're like, yeah, yeah, that's no problem. Just cancel it. So I'm like, okay. So me not knowing what I'm doing, I'm like, oh, hey, I need to cancel this. And then Airbnb is like, okay, well, you're not going to be a super host for a year. And I was like, what? Like, you have got to
Well,
be kidding me. So,
and everybody was okay with it. It's not as though it was like
yeah,
canceling this
like,
and it's totally like messing up your travel plans and stuff like that.
and
Like
like,
that.
yeah, and the thing is, like, I've always believed in doing like flexible cancellations because I'm like, life happens, like, it kind
Yeah.
of is what it's property dependent, of course, but
Yeah.
for that situation, I was like, that seems reasonable. So, I'm like, it's not like they would have been like penalized for canceling or like literally anything. So I was like, oh, okay. So, in the
So
future,
Airbnb stopped you from reaching superhost status for an entire year because
yep.
of so if you get anything from this call and you're either a new host or thinking about hosting, there is your saving grace right there
Yeah,
for that.
don't do instant book.
Yeah. Um, have there been any challenges where you've like, this is kind of annoying, but it is what it is as part of being a host? Is there anything that you've been like annoyed about?
Um, I don't feel like I generally get annoyed by things. Like situations have come up and I'm like, oh, okay, today has unexpected challenges.
Yeah.
But as far as being like, like, well, no, I guess that's not entirely true. There was one time we had a group of people, and they were workers and they booked for a week, left suddenly after 3 days. And then we went into clean, and there was like a footprint on the TV on the wall. There was like a whole lot of like empty alcohol containers and stuff. And it was like, yeah, like I think I'm okay with the fact that you only stayed for 3 nights because I might have
Yeah.
been a little scared to see it if it was any longer than that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was one thing where I was kind of like, ooh, like I feel like we like this is an inconvenience, but I feel like we might have dodged a bigger bullet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And the TV was okay. So obviously you're like,
Yeah,
okay, well,
fortunately.
this could have been worse.
Yeah. Like I'm glad that you chose this exact spot to do your gymnastics.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you encourage guests to leave reviews?
Um, I don't. I just kind of usually when they check out, then I'm like, hey, like I hope you had a really great stay, like safe travels. And then I find a lot of guests just kind of review anyways.
Yeah.
Um, I also have, so I don't know, there's this book that Airbnb sends out. It's like a guest book kind of thing. So
Okay.
I leave that at the property. And I find most people end up writing something in it. So there's that. And then I feel like once they've written something in the book, then they're kind of more inclined to actually write a review.
Yeah.
So,
You know what you
and
could do? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm not a fan of reviewing guests if they haven't reviewed me, just because I'm like, I don't know if they're familiar with the reviewing system and stuff like that and how it works. And, like we're harshly penalized if it's anything less than 5 stars.
Okay.
So I don't try to push people into it if it's not something that they're kind of like familiar with, I guess.
Right.
Um, that's just my own personal strategy. It's been working, so
Mhm.
I'm not really inclined to do anything too different. But I know I've seen like other people, they have little magnets and stuff that they put on the fridge, and it's like, this is how Airbnb kind of views your review. So, you know,
Okay.
if you had a really crappy stay, give us 4 stars. If it was,
Yeah.
exactly what you expected, give us five kind of thing.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, because I think asking for those reviews, some people may just not understand like the impact it could have on you, obviously in a
yeah.
good or a bad way. So I think asking for it is probably good, unless you know that maybe they didn't have a good stay, then maybe just not ask.
You're like, you do nothing to see
Yeah.
here.
Looking at you, you never stayed here.
Yeah.
Do you use any tools or technology that you find useful for managing your Airbnb?
I know I just have my notes app and I basically write like the check-in message and stuff like that. I have a little guide that I put together, like, hey, this is how you make your stay like the most comfortable. You want to consider these things.
Right.
And I send that the guide I send out right after they book because I'm like, this is gonna help you kind of prepare. So
Yeah.
familiarize yourself with this. And
Yeah.
then on check-in day, I'm like, okay, like, here's your check-in instructions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't automate a lot of stuff in my life. Like I like, having that more personal connection and having conversations. So
Yeah. Being more
yeah.
relational than transactional kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, do you do the cleaning and stuff yourself, or do you hire that out?
I do it myself. It's manageable. So I have just been doing it on my own. I think if I were to expand in any way, I would probably look at hiring.
Yeah.
But I'm really super picky when it comes to that. Um, I don't know. I find a lot of my travel experience, like prior to traveling around, to cottages and stuff here, was like, being in Germany, visiting family, staying somewhere there. So I find that the cleanliness standard is a little different from place to place.
Yeah.
And I find that in Germany, they're very extreme with things, which should not be surprising.
Yeah.
So,
Um, okay, so when we're talking about marketing and booking, so how do you market your Airbnb listing? Do you like advertise it, or you just kind of let Airbnb do their thing?
I have like a Facebook page, I have a TikTok account for it. And that's pretty much as far as I go with that. It has been pretty steady.
Yeah,
So I
that's
think just a
awesome.
combination of those and then whatever Airbnb is doing on their end seems to be working okay.
Yeah. And what's the handles for those so that anybody listening can go check it out?
So on Facebook, it's just Dragonfly Wilderness Resort, and on TikTok, it's DW Resort.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So advice for new hosts. So what advice would you give someone who is just starting out as an Airbnb host, other than to not cancel? I
Yeah,
guess.
well, there's that. That's a big one. Yeah, I think like get some travel experience is a good one. Like
Yeah.
experience the guest end of it. Um, because once you're clear on that, then it's a lot easier to create an experience that you want people to have.
Yeah.
Other than that, I would say, oh, definitely a good one is blocking off a day in before. or sorry, a day before and after.
Okay.
So when you get a reservation, then have a day blocked off before the people check in and after they check out, just until you get the cleaning streamlined, because you do not want to be in for any kind of surprises when it comes to that.
Yeah. So kind of have like a grace period between checkout and a check, like having like a day in between, you're saying?
Yeah. That was kind of a lifesaver for me once I had my experience with the instant booking disaster. It was like, well, maybe I should look at all the settings, like what would avoid
Yeah,
this in the future. So,
exactly. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we've touched on a lot of things, and I think anybody who is hosting or thinking about hosting has probably learned a little bit from our conversation today. So
yeah.
I'm excited to be, doing these interviews because I think it's super valuable. Everybody's experiences are different, and you're learning different lessons. So
Yeah.
the fact that we can share these and help other hosts is amazing. So thank you
Yeah,
so
it's
much
huge.
for being part of this and helping us spread the word about the guest experience, because honestly, it is. I feel like guests are underrating the experience or sorry, not guests. Hosts are underrating the importance of the experience that they're offering. Some people are just opening the doors, letting them stay, and not really
Yeah.
creating an experience, right? Like my whole thing with the Airbnb Super Host community is let's craft a complete experience for these guests so that they give you that 5-star review, they
Yeah.
want to come back, and then they're telling everybody that they know because there's something special that you created for them. You made memories for them. And so I feel like that's what I want to help hosts achieve, is just become the super host, be able to build that guest experience to the max, which I have some other things I want to share with you offline here about something that I'm working on. And so so I think it's super important that we're having these kinds of conversations for sure.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
win-win for everybody, right? Like it's a
It
win for
is.
you and it's a win for the guests.
Yeah. Well, learning and sharing information is a really valuable asset, because like there's just when you don't do that, then there's this whole world that you know nothing about, right?
Yeah.
So
And this can be looked at as research, right? Like when you're
yeah,
getting ready to
exactly.
get into the Airbnb space or the hosting space, like people are going to want to take in all this type of information and go, okay, so we learned from Christine that we do not
Let's do
cancel.
more of this and less of that.
Yeah, exactly. Try to help them avoid the mistakes that have already been made. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much. And I will definitely have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.